Welcome to the Sports Scouting Report podcast with Lee Burkeen.
Hi, everyone. This is Lee Burkeen, your host. You're listening to the Sports Scouting Report on Monday. I hope everybody's had a great weekend and everybody's back to work. Some of us worked the weekend, like myself. And this is a show that we always recap the high school football games over the weekend and talk about recruiting. Today we've got three schools I'm going to cover for recruiting. Minden High School around the Bossier City area. Basically, Minden's its own area, but it's closer to Bossier City, not too far from West Monroe and those areas. Minden's got a rich tradition of football. Another school I'm going to cover is Cecilia High School. Cecilia High School, which is also in its own area, which is a suburb of Lafayette. Another great school for tradition. And a third school I'm going to cover today is West St. John in the River Parishes in Edgard, Louisiana, which is in its own area as well. Not too far from Lutcher and St. James High School in those areas, but again, it's its own town in Edgard, and West St. John's got a ton of history. These are three great high schools. We're going to be talking about their senior recruits, not their juniors or sophomores as much, but really their seniors. And today, I want to go ahead and get into high school football games. We've got 1 week left. Isn't it crazy? Just 1 week left of games for the high school season. And I'm just glad and appreciative that we've got a high school football season, because a lot of games have been canceled over the 8 weeks that we've had games. Technically, week 9 just passed, but we didn't have a full 9 weeks with many teams, and most teams were on a schedule of 7 games, and some teams are only going to get 4 games in. Some teams didn't even get to play this year. Some teams might get 3 games in this season. And some fortunate teams will get all 6 or 7 games in for the whole year going into the playoffs. It's going to be very interesting to see how the LHSA and the committee does the playoff pairings, which I'll be a part of for the Cox Sports Television this coming Sunday morning for the selection show. I'll be joined. Jeff Palermo will be on as one of the people on the show, and Alan Waddell and me, and like I said, Jeff Palermo will go over all the games from Class 1A to 5A. But today, let's go over Week 9. Basically, it doesn't feel like Week 9. It feels like we're in Week 5. I mean, we didn't have Jamboree weeks this week because of the COVID-19. There was no Jamborees. There was no first week, second week, or third week. But we did get in the Week 9. It did happen. There was a point we didn't think we were going to have football. So, again, I'm very appreciative, and I'm sure a lot of coaches are and players. But let's start with North Louisiana from this past week. A lot of games were canceled again. There were more probably in the North Louisiana area, and there's not as many teams, but it looked like more for North Louisiana that weren't played because of the COVID-19 virus. But there were still some good games. And to me, the upset of the weekend in North Louisiana, and to me it wasn't an upset. Okay, maybe on rankings in the state it might have been. Minden lost to Cedar Creek. And Minden, we're going to talk about Minden today and their recruits. Cedar Creek beat them 50-28, which is it's a huge win for Cedar Creek. Cedar Creek out of the Ruston area needed a big win to strengthen their schedule. They've had some games they've had to move around to get opponents because of the virus. They've had some games they've had to go with different teams, and this was one of them. Minden wasn't on the schedule originally, and they led at halftime and they finished. And Cedar Creek's got a very good team, and they're a team that's really coming on late, but they've got a good group of seniors and juniors. It's a good mix, and I think they're going to be trouble for a lot of teams if they can get in. I mean, I don't know how the pairings are going to be. I don't know. Truly, I haven't studied PowerPoints for every team, but I will tell you this coming Monday, not this Monday, but the following Monday, I'll talk about the playoffs and my predictions and so forth. But let's get into some more games in North Louisiana that were played in Week 9. Bastrop, I thought, was a big game against Neville. Bastrop lost to Neville. Bastrop's got a heck of a team, and Neville beat them 38-15. And again, if you're not very familiar with Bastrop this year in 2020, they have a lot of players that can play college ball. They have a very good quarterback. We talked about him about a week ago. This shows me that Neville's back to being a title contender. They're coming on strong in Class 4A. Bastrop will be a big-time team to beat in the playoffs. In Alexandria, Peabody beat Bolton 8-0. Kind of a weird score. Defensive game. Peabody's coming on. They're getting better every week. I had a chance to see them play. They've got a very good team, a lot of good seniors. It's been a tough season, everybody, for Evangel Christian out of Shreveport. This might go down as one of the worst seasons for Evangel since the first year or two of the school. You know, they're not reloading, they're rebuilding. And I think they're going to be okay in the future. They're low on numbers, and all their good players are freshmen. And they're really a Class 2A talent-wise school right now, not a 5A or a 4A. But they lost to Booker T. Washington. Booker T. needed a big win. They've had a tough season as well out of Shreveport. And Booker T. Washington's had a tough year as well. I don't know if they'll get in the playoffs or not, either one of these teams. Obviously, I think right now it's not looking like they would. But Booker T., it was a huge win for them. And continuing on in North Louisiana, I thought North DeSoto's really coming on. That's a team we're going to be talking about in the future. They won against Woodlawn of Shreveport 14-0. North DeSoto's got a lot of talent, and they've got a lot of junior and sophomore talent. They're going to be around for a long time. Coach Dennis Dunn has got this program really going in the right direction. I really believe that North DeSoto is a team that's going to be challenging for state championships in the near future. I think 2021 is going to be their year. Tioga in Alexandria area had a big win over DeRidder, 14-3. They've got a good team. They got a chance to go a long way in the playoffs. Buckeye, speaking of Alexandria area, they lost to Caldwell Parish. Caldwell's got a very good team. They're going to be tough in the playoffs as well. And also, Union Parish in the Ruston area beat Carroll 48-18. Man, keep an eye on Union Parish. I think they can challenge for a state championship in 3A. And then you look at Manny and Loyola Prep. It's been a tough year for Loyola Prep. It really has been. Manny 61-27 over Loyola Prep. Loyola Prep out of Shreveport, Manny, close to the Natchitoches area. Manny's got a heck of an offense. Terrence Williams, their running back, all 6 foot tall, 6'1", about 230. Man, this guy's tough to bring down. They have another running back that's a D1 player. They've got a D1 quarterback who's really an athlete. They've got some very good recruits on this team and a very good team. I thought here was a good game in North Louisiana. Mansfield and North Webster. Mansfield got a big win over North Webster, 46-20. Mansfield, they've really got some good players coming up. They're a young team, actually. In Bunkie, in Alexandria area, beat Lakeview 49-0. That was a big win for them. And another big win for Lakeside over DeMarmon Woods Charter, 28-12. And North Caddo, a team we don't talk about as much, North Caddo in the Shreveport area beat Jonesboro Hodge 44-21. Another game that people don't really maybe pay attention to as much, Rayville, they're going to be a good team in the playoffs. They beat Madison 30-8. Rayville's got a lot of talent. And, Delhi, who's got a great program, the last 3 years they've been close to going to a state championship game. They lost to General Trask, one of the best teams in the Monroe area this year, 54-6. General Trask, best team probably in the history of the program under the name General Trask, one of the top teams. Homer, another small school outside of Shreveport, beat Plain Dealing 54-6. And St. Mary's in the Natchitoches area beat Montgomery 37-16. And here was the big game in the Monroe area, the big one. Ouachita Christian and St. Frederick's. St. Fred, as they call it, St. Fred lost to Ouachita Christian 27-7. Big win for Ouachita Christian, just for, bragging rights against a rival in Monroe. But St. Fred has a good team. I just think Ouachita Christian's really starting to peak, and they're starting to come together as a team to challenge for a state title. When we come back, we're going to have more of high school football in South Louisiana, and then we're going to talk recruiting. We're going to have West St. John High School recruits, Minden High School, and Cecilia High School right outside of Lafayette. We'll be right back. Listen, whatever you're driving right now, Tommy Harvey wants it. Bring it in to Harvey Subaru, Lexus of Shreveport, Bossier City, or John Harvey Toyota. They're paying big bucks for all trades right now. They'll cut you a check right there. Tell them Lee sent you. Welcome back. You're listening to the Sports Scouting Report. I'm your host, Lee Burkeen, and we're going to cover recruiting later in the show. This segment, we're going to go over South Louisiana high school football from this past weekend. We just talked about North Louisiana, which had a lot of games that were canceled. And there was a lot in South Louisiana that were canceled as well. There were over 50 games in the state this past weekend that were canceled due to the coronavirus. And just to be careful on a lot of these programs so they can get back to playing football for week 10. One more week before the playoffs, for the big playoffs coming up. South Louisiana. Let's talk about South Louisiana high school football. There were some big games. Acadiana, Catholic of Baton Rouge, Archbishop Rummel played John Curtis. Covington had a big game with Vandy Catholic. You had Karen Crow and St. Thomas More. There were a lot of big games in South Louisiana. Let's start with Acadiana and Baton Rouge Catholic High. Catholic won in a thriller, 27-21 over Acadiana. This is Acadiana's first loss on the season. Catholic High had lost their first two games, but they were to two tough teams. They lost to Edna Carr and St. Thomas More. Look at this schedule for Catholic High Baton Rouge. They have to get the scheduling award for reschedules. All right, they schedule Acadiana at the last minute, one of the top programs in the state. They win that game. They schedule Ruston, one of the top programs in the state. They win that game, 48-42. And then they lost to St. Thomas More barely and Edna Carr during the season, two other teams that are going to win probably state titles. So you're playing four of the top, I think, 7 programs in the state. Man, Coach Fertitta will play, the old saying, play anybody, anywhere. He's definitely that way. And look, I think this is going to pay off for Catholic High when they have to beat a Catholic League team from New Orleans or a Bird from Shreveport when it comes playoff time. It's going to get them ready more than anybody in the state for the playoffs. But Catholic High, Acadiana did come to Baton Rouge to play them. Both teams needed an opponent. I'm just glad to see these two teams were able to keep it going and keep playing. Speaking of the Catholic League in New Orleans, Archbishop Rummel and John Curtis. That's a big game. That's a big game in the Catholic League. Rummel beat John Curtis 2014. That's also a big deal. Rummel's a young team, very young, except their quarterback, Wickersham, is a senior, and they've got one of the top running backs in the state. But outside of that, they're very, very young, on offense especially. And this is a huge win for Coach Nick Monica. This is a huge statement win for such a young Rummel team. And also it's going to help them for the playoffs because, John Curtis is very young too. But they've been able to win every week. And this was a game that Rummel really needed. And they beat John Curtis 2014 in a close game. Covington, this was a good game. I think Vandy Catholic's really good out of Houma. Covington lost. This is one of the best wins for Vandy Catholic in many years. They beat Covington 20-6. A game that wasn't really billed as a top-ranked game as far as recruits or as far as rankings was Denham Springs and Walker in Baton Rouge. Denham Springs gets their first win of the season, beating Walker 26-21. Britt Beard is the new coach. The former longtime Live Oak High School head coach is doing a good job turning things. I think he'll turn things around. I think 221 will be completely different for this team. He brings a lot of coaching. He brings a lot of discipline. And sometimes it takes a little bit to get that to change over. And I think it will at Denham Springs. Big win for their program. Another big game, Hahnville played Jesuit. You know, Hahnville's got a good team. They lost to Jesuit 47-21. It just goes to show you how good these Catholic League teams are in New Orleans. Jesuit had a very big game on offense. They had a very good game on defense. 47 on Hahnville is very impressive. John Ehret is quietly winning. John Ehret on the West Bank. You know, we all know him from Reggie Wayne played there. A lot of great players. Cordell Stewart played in the NFL. The Steelers in Colorado University. Michael Divinity recently played at LSU at linebacker, played at John Ehret. We can go on and on and on. But John Ehret, keep an eye on those guys. They're doing very well. Locally in Baton Rouge, Live Oak scheduled Pineville really late. Pineville's got a good team, and Live Oak won 34-20. It was a big win for them. In New Iberia, they had to go to Sulphur, which has a good team, and New Iberia beat Sulphur 54-7, which I think is very impressive for New Iberia. It was a needed win for them, too. Ponchatoula, another big game on the North Shore, Tangipahoa Parish, played the North Shore St. Paul's and won 35-28. Coach Hank Turney and his staff, it was a big win for Ponchatoula. St. Paul's has got a very young team this year. It's been a tough season for them. Coach Sears, they're going to be back. And I don't know, anything can happen. See what happens for the playoffs, if that happens or not. But they've been in the playoffs just about every year he's been head coach. Thibodaux, this was a great game against H.L. Bourgeois. 36-35, Thibodaux beats H.L. Bourgeois. Big game. H.L.'s really improved this year out of the Houma area in Louisiana. H.L.'s got a good program this year. And then continuing on, Breaux Bridge had a big win over Albany. 42-20. Albany's got a good team. I've had a chance to see Breaux Bridge and Albany. Let me tell you something. Breaux Bridge has had a lot of injuries this year. I mean, they've lost about 7 or 8 key starters by the first 2 weeks of the season, and that's what's been hurting Breaux Bridge on a lot of their losses. I mean, they've had a tough schedule, but they lost so many players to injuries, and that's really what's hurt Breaux Bridge this year. If you're wondering if it's just a rebuild, no, it's just a lot of injuries. So and that happens. Broadmoor, they're trying to get on track. Sauer Crutchfield is their head coach, and they're trying to get things back to normal. They lost to Plaquemine 68-0. Karen Crow, St. Thomas More, the game of the week in Lafayette area. Karen Crow loses to St. Thomas More 37-22. That's kind of the gauge where you think St. Thomas More is. I mean, they have Jack Besh. They've got Walker Howard at quarterback. They've got a lot of talent on their defense. And they have other receivers. Karen Crow's very talented, but, this is always a big game for both programs. Cecilia beat a good Livonia team. We're going to be talking about Cecilia later in the show. They won 60-12. A big win for Cecilia. We'll talk more about them when we get into recruiting. Another big win, a team that's had kind of a tough year is Turling's Catholic out of Lafayette. They beat St. Martinville, who's got a good team, 59-19. And somebody you're not hearing a lot of is Bogalusa. Bogalusa's got a heck of a team, and they beat Jules Sumner, who's real good. They lost to Jules Sumner 7-6. Jules Sumner out of the Greensburg, Kentwood area. Jules Sumner beat Bogalusa this past week. And, there's other games. I mean, Madison Prep had a big win over Parkview Baptist. I thought Lake Charles Prep beat a good Iowa. Amite beat a good Pine High School 35-7. And I tell you, Catholic in New Iberia, who's got a young, talented team, beat Generette. It was a big win for them, 43-0. It's been a tough year for Catholic in New Iberia. They're very young. And another team that's had a tough year is Dunham in Baton Rouge. Dunham lost to Port Allen 22-21. It's a big win for Port Allen. But it's been really tough for Dunham this year, really tough. Probably the toughest season probably Neil Weiner's probably ever had as a coach this year at Dunham. And they're very talented. Look, if these guys stick together, they could be one of the better teams in 221 in Baton Rouge. And one final game of note in the River Parish is Riverside played West St. John. And Riverside won 15-14, which Riverside, I'm a big fan of their program. Really big fan of Gage, who's one of the top athletes in the state. We're going to come back, and when we take a break, from the break, we're going to talk recruiting. We're going to talk about Cecilia High School, West St. John, and Minden High School when we come back. Looking for a used car? Harvey Autos has 3 dealerships, which means 3 times the used vehicles. They've got everything from fuel-efficient compacts to luxury models, even hybrids, and certified pre-owned with a warranty. Check out John Harvey Toyota, Harvey Subaru, or Lexus of Shreveport, Bossier City. Welcome back. You're listening to the Sports Scouting Report. I'm Lee Burkeen, your host, and today we're going over the high school games over the weekend. This segment, we're going to talk about recruiting. You know, everybody loves recruiting. That's something I've been involved in since 1991. I looked at it the other day. There's so many games that I've scouted in person and full game. It's one day I'm going to add it up and share with everybody. I know it's in the thousands. I'd be curious to see if it's 10,000, 30,000, 50,000, 100,000. I don't know what it is. It's a lot of games. It's 91. And actually, I go back to 1988, starting to go to those games, high school games, back even when I was in high school. Me and my dad would go to a lot of high school games and check out the top players in the state because my dad was a coach, and he just had a genuine interest in, high school football. And we used to go to college games, and I know a lot of our listeners are into recruiting like I am, and also, I've worked for over 100 colleges. Before Huddle came out, I was working for just about every college in the country personally for film. That was before Huddle came out. We would film the game statewide, and then we would sell the film to the colleges, but I would break down the film for the next 3 years of the recruiting classes for Louisiana based on D1, 1AA, D2, D3, junior college, and prep schools. And that's a lot of work, but it's a passion. It's something that I love. And I know a lot of people that listen to the show love high school football. They have a passion for the game. And I'm glad we're able to do this podcast every week, and I hope you're enjoying it. We're going to go ahead and talk recruiting this segment. And our first school, who I had a chance to watch the other day, is West St. John High School in Edgard, Louisiana, the river parishes of Louisiana. If you're not from South Louisiana and you're listening to the show from Shreveport or Bossier City or Monroe or anywhere in North Louisiana, even Alexandria, Pineville, West St. John's got one of the top programs in the state every year. This year they're a little young. They're not as deep on talent or in numbers, but they do have some good players. Every year they've got good players. Now, one of the top players to ever come out of this program was a kid by the name of Tyson Jackson. Tyson played at LSU, was a defensive end, and went high in the NFL draft as a defensive end at 6'5", about 285, and played a few years in the NFL. They had a fullback go to LSU named Quinn Johnson. Quinn played in the NFL for a few years, was a linebacker actually at West St. John and converted to fullback at LSU. And they've had several other players. Those are just a couple to name you that were some of the most recent NFL players. But the kids that I like this year that are seniors at West St. John is their quarterback, Ferdinand Young, who's really an athlete, but he's the best athlete for them to play quarterback. Let's face it, in high school football, you don't have free agency, and it's not the NFL. So whoever you have on the roster, you got to make it work, and he's the best athlete to play that position. And here's a kid that's 6'3.5", 180 pounds, and he's very raw. He's new to the game. This is only his second year, really, of football, playing a lot on varsity. Ferdinand is a guy that I think will be a receiver in college, and he would be a steal for a 1AA program. He's going to be about 200 pounds, 210 when he fills out, still run really well. And another guy they have, it's a senior, Blaine Morse. Blaine is a Mike linebacker, but he's really a defensive end for the team, but he'll play Mike linebacker in college. Blaine is about 6 foot tall, about 220 pounds, and runs about a 4.7 40. I think he's a big-time steal for 1AA. Who's 1AA? Teams like Southeastern, Southern, McNeese, Northwestern, Nicholls State. Those are 1AAs. Lamar in Texas, Stephen F. Austin, Sam Houston. Those are 1AA programs. Blaine is a tough kid. Number 9 is his jersey. He goes all out. I mean, his kid's everywhere. And he's got high football speed, so he closes and makes plays. I also like their tight end, Rondé Wilson, who's about 6'3", about 215, for the D2 level, because he's a kid that's just starting to play ball, doesn't really know the game, but he's super, super talented at 6'3", about 215, and can run. He could be a DN or a tight end. And another kid I like is a kid on this team named Troy Jasmine. He's a receiver, about 5'9.5", about 170, 165. And Troy's just a playmaker, and he gets the ball. They don't throw the ball as well as some teams. They're more run-oriented. And it brings me to their last senior prospect that I like, Jacoby Robeson, who is 5'9", about 230 pounds, almost 5'10". He's a heck of a blocker. And if you're looking for a fullback that can just block immediately and has a little power to run when needed, this Robeson is a heck of a player. And he's under the radar big time. And another key senior for them is Ray Roussel, who's a defensive end, 6 foot, about 230. And another top player for them, I don't know if he's going to go college, but he probably could play D3, is Jaden Hamilton, who is a cornerback, plays a little running back, 5'7", about 165, runs a 4.5 in the 40. Very good football player. It's a young team. I'm going to go ahead and take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about Cecilia High School, and then we have Minden High School after that. But Cecilia High School, man, what a program they have this year. They've got one of the top teams in the state, in my opinion, this year in Louisiana. We'll be right back. So, hey, guys, just wanted to take a minute to tell you about Harvey Autos. If you need a new or used car, there's 3 great dealerships right here worth checking out. John Harvey Toyota, Harvey Subaru, and Lexus of Shreveport, Bossier City. Low prices, honest people. Tell them Lee sent you. Welcome back. You listen to the Sports Scouting Report. I'm your host, Lee Burkeen, and we're going to continue to talk recruiting, which I think we all enjoy. And in this segment, I want to talk about Cecilia High School. Man, what a program. This program has had so many great players go off to Tulane and LSU and ULL and Nicholls State and Louisiana Tech and ULM of Monroe and you name it. They've had players sign everywhere over the years. One of my favorite players that played at Cecilia back in the day was a quarterback by the name of Andy Chance. Andy ended up going to ULM of Monroe, and he was a heck of a punter and a quarterback, 6'4", about 210. Another favorite of mine was Jamaican Dartez that went to Tulane, was a great running back. And one of the greatest players to ever come out of the program went to LSU. His name is Ramsey Dardar, a D-tackle, played for LSU back in the early 80s, was one of the most talented D-tackles to ever play at LSU. If you're under the age of 40, you might not remember Ramsey Dardar, but he was a phenomenal D-tackle. But look, just so the listeners know this, I had a chance to see Cecilia play in the last 4 days. They are incredibly talented in their senior class. And not only are they talented, but they have one of the best defenses in the state. These guys swarm the ball. And when I say swarm, there's 5 or 6 helmets on every kid every time there's a tackle. Sometimes it's like 8 or 9. They look like hornets. I mean, Cecilia, these kids play with a lot of heart and they have a lot of speed. And they're very, very underrated. They're 7-1 on the season, 5-0 in district. And I believe that Cecilia, this is their best team in a long time. And they had a good team 4 years ago. But this team's probably better than the team 4 years ago that had a chance to win a state championship. This team, I think, is faster. It's a bigger senior group. And they have more size. They have more talent in the defense and offensive lines. Look, I'm going to tell you, let me name some of these seniors. DeCamion Calais, O-line, D-line, number 55. This guy's phenomenal, man. He looks like a 4'9" in the 40. He's about 5'11", about 260, and he plays like he's 6'8", 300. But this DeCamion Calais is phenomenally intense, like most of this team. They got a kid on the O-line named Daniel Corville, who's 6'2", 300. I think he can play 1AA ball and be a heck of a guard. Very intense. Another offensive lineman, number 63, Hunter Lallan, 6'3", 290. Also intense. Very strong. Also, on the D-line, Devin Hardy, 6'2", about 240. Another super intense, aggressive kid. And then when you go on the offense, they've got some great players. Andrew Lewis, who's 6'4", 200 pounds, is a receiver. He also plays corner. He's a phenomenal player. Andrew Lewis has great hands, runs smooth. I mean, he looks like, any of the top receivers in the state. He really does. Andrew Lewis, I liked him last year, but, man, I'm really liking him this year. He's really coming to his own. He looks like Brian Thomas of Walker. He's a little heavier. He's a little longer, and I think he's on that level. Andrew Lewis. He's going to be moving up in my final rankings for Louisiana, but Andrew Lewis, all of 6'4", over 200 pounds, and can really run. And when he catches the ball and gets past the line, you can't catch him. He's one of the top players in Louisiana. And they also have a good quarterback. He's not a senior, but I want to mention this, Alex Soley. Alex is big-time leader. Has a good arm. Alex is a big-time quarterback. But some of their top defensive players, going back to defense, Jace Daigle, defensive end, about 6'2", 240. I think he can play 1AA, be a great starter. Layson Milson, a cornerback, super quick. Another senior, Braden Thibodeau, defensive end, linebacker, safety. 6 foot, about 185, runs about a 4.6, big-time instinctive kid. Dondrick Sampe, a corner, 5'7", about 155, super fast, super aggressive. Another defensive end, linebacker, Sental Noel, runs about a 4.65. And on offense, another receiver, Bryce Nellums, who goes about 6'2", 6'3", with really good hands. I mean, this team is loaded with leadership, and their head coach, Dennis Gaines, does a phenomenal job. Another player I want to mention, he's only a sophomore, but he's phenomenal at running back and linebacker for them, is Ridge Collins. Ridge Collins has got a lot of ability, people. He is probably one of the best two-way players in Class 3A in the state. But keep an eye on Cecilia. This is not a team you hear a lot about on the sports channels, on the news channels, or on the internet. They have a chance to legitimately win a state championship on the public side in Class 3A. They got a great program. Dennis Gaines has really built this program into a winner. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about Minden High School. Minden High School, another team with a good senior class of kids. They had a tough loss to Cedar Creek this past weekend, but we're going to talk about their seniors. We'll be right back. Looking for a used car? Harvey Autos has 3 dealerships, which means 3 times the used vehicles. They've got everything from fuel-efficient compacts to luxury models, even hybrids. and certified pre-owned with a warranty. Check out John Harvey Toyota, Harvey Subaru, or Lexus of Shreveport, Bossier City. Welcome back. You're listening to the Sports Scouting Report. I'm your host, Lee Burkeen. Today's topic is recapping all the high school football games over the weekend and also recruiting. In this segment, we're going to talk about Minden High School. Minden's really done a great job this year. I mean, they've got a good program, and I like the job Spencer Hurd's done. I really do. Spencer Hurd played at Mansfield. I'm old enough to remember when he played at Mansfield High School. Spencer Hurd, by the way, if you listen to the show, who's the head coach at Minden, was a heck of a football player in high school. Played at Louisiana Tech. Man, this guy ran a 4.4 in the 40. He was one of the fastest players in Louisiana at Mansfield. And he'll go down as one of the greatest skilled players to ever play at Mansfield. But like I said, what he's doing at Minden is phenomenal. Minden High School has two of the top players in the state. They've got one of the top defensive tackles in Louisiana, if not the best. And I think the best free safety in the state, or one of the best in the state that I've seen. Austin King is the free safety. The defensive tackle is Jalen Green. Austin King, let me tell you, let me share this with the listeners. When I scout safeties, just like colleges, you look for a guy that huddles everybody up. You look for a safety that can cover deep. You look for a safety that will come up and hit you. And you look for a safety that can blitz and get sacks. And you look for somebody who's super aggressive, very instinctive, someone that's very strong. Austin King checks all these boxes, and then some. He's 6'1", about 175 pounds, and he's like a heat-seeking missile when he runs. I mean, he'll run from point A to point B in about 2 seconds. He'll come up and sack the quarterback. He'll intercept balls, and he also returns punts for touchdowns and kickoffs. He's got 4.40 speed. That's 4.40 speed, almost 4.4 speed in the 40. I think he's LSU good. I think he's one of the top safeties in the state. You know, Austin last year only weighed about 160 pounds, and he's really put on some good weight to back up his aggressiveness. And Louisiana Tech signed a kid from Minden 4 years ago by the name of Lazarius Sneed, who's now with the Chiefs. And I used to brag about Sneed every weekend, and people go, man, if LSU's not offering him, he must not be any good. I'm like, you don't understand. Sneed's one of the best in the state because he was instinctive and had speed and size. And guess what? He's in the NFL with the Chiefs. He's going to have a long career with the Kansas City Chiefs. He's hurt right now, but he was one of the top players for them as a rookie this year. And he had a phenomenal career at Tech. One of those kids that LSU probably should have took 4 years ago as a cornerback. But Austin King's the next DB like that. He's on that level. And if you're listening to the show, you're going to hear about Austin King in college football on the D1 level. Whoever gets him, whoever's lucky to get this kid. And also their D lineman. Jalen Green, he's either the best D tackle in the state or one of the top three to me. Everybody talks about Mason Smith from Terrebonne High School in Houma, who's very good. But Jalen Green is 6'2", 280. He runs a 4.9 in the 40, and he benches over 400, almost 400 pounds. Runs about like I said, a 4.9 in the 40. Looks about 4.7, and one of the strongest D tackles in Louisiana. I mean, you can put three people on him, and he's going to knock down the whole O-line. I mean, he's got feet, and he's got high drive, meaning he gives high effort with God-given ability. Man, that's scary. When you have God-given ability and your effort is off the charts, that's why I think he's one of the best in the state. Jalen Green. And then there's other players. There's a quarterback, Trenton McLaughlin, who's a quarterback who's also a D1 baseball player. He's 6'3", 200 pounds with a cannon arm. And he still hasn't put it all together yet. But when Trenton decides what sport he wants to play, whether it's baseball or football, I think he's more advanced in baseball, but he's got a cannon arm. I mean, his kid can throw it 70 yards. And then you got Parker Hall at receiver, who runs a 4.5 in the 40, big-time playmaker, who could play 1AA ball or D2. And you got a DN by the name of Javante Morris, who's one of the best in the state. Now, when you look at his size, he's 5'11", 250. But this guy looks like Arnold Schwarzenegger in a uniform. I mean, he's like 250 muscle, like a Devin White of LSU. You know how Devin was just so ripped up when he played at LSU and North Webster? Javante Morris, there's not a better DN in the state coming off the edge. Now, he could play Mike linebacker and be a D1 Mike linebacker, in my opinion. And runs about a 4.7 in the 40. And he looks faster than that. I mean, off the ball, he looks like he's 4.5. But there's not a more impressive-looking specimen playing D-line than Javante Morris at Minden. Remember that name, because there's going to be some teams that get him. Whoever signs him is going to get a big-time player. And there's other players. There's Justin Richardson at running back, who's about 5'7", 180, runs a 4.5. There's R.J. Dillard, who's a former running back for Minden, but now a linebacker, 5'8", about 180, big-time hitter. He could be a D3 star and walk on the Northwestern 1AA. The O-line's got a good O-line, and they're led by Chance Hammonds, who's 6'2", about 225, really great feet. I think would make a great center in college. And they've got a kid by the name of Cameron Combs. Don't know if he'll play college ball, but very tough kid. And another kid by the name of Jake Morrow, who's about 6'2", about 280, who's got a lot of ability. He's a late bloomer with a lot of ability. And they have a cornerback, one of the top cornerbacks in the state of Louisiana, very hidden. His name is Jacorian Greenyard, 5'10", about 175, 180. Runs a 4.5, great instincts. I've seen this kid intercept a lot of passes over the last 3 years. Again, he's a guy that's going to slip to a small D1 school and be a great player. I hope everybody enjoyed the show. I want to do a plug for my sponsor before we go. John Harvey Toyota. Looking for a used car? Harvey Autos has 3 dealerships, which means 3 times the used vehicles. They've got everything from fuel-efficient compacts to luxury models, even hybrids, and certified pre-owned with a warranty. Check out John Harvey Toyota, Harvey Subaru, or Lexus of Shreveport, Bossier City. Tommy, thanks for your support. Tommy Harvey, the owner of John Harvey Toyota and Harvey Subaru of Lexus of Shreveport, Bossier City. Great, great place. When you think of buying a vehicle, go check them out. They support high school football, college football. I hope everybody enjoyed the show today. Please go to our website, lafootballmagazine.com. You can get your preview issue still from the season, which has all the kids I talked about just now, all the kids from those 3 schools, all the kids that we talked about today from the schools, from the high school games. They're in the magazine. It's our 24th year to put out a preview for North and South. We have 2 copies. And, I'm excited because Wednesday we're going to talk about college football. And I have a college coach as a guest from one of the top junior colleges in Mississippi. So you don't want to miss Wednesday's show. And guess what I'm doing Friday? Friday's show, we're going to go over the all-Louisiana team, second team for North in the state. We only put the first team in the magazine. This is the second team, all-Louisiana team, offense and defense for Louisiana. And then the following week, we're going to do the South Louisiana second team, offense and defense. And these are guys that have caught my scouting and during recruiting, watching film of all the teams this year. And that's what I've been doing a lot of this year is watching film, full game film on all the high schools. Averaging about 13 a day. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of passion. Again, I hope everybody enjoyed the show today. Everybody have a great Monday, and we'll see you this Wednesday.
Thanks for listening to the Sports Scouting Report podcast with Lee Brackeen.